What is going on, people? TripleM back again with another video. It's a daily list of football content, and today I would like to talk about that lovely red club from Manchester that sometimes makes me want to pull my hair out and makes me question my life decisions, but other times makes me very excited, fills me with joy, and fills me with absolute pride, and that is Manchester United. And whether or not we've seen tangible improvements under Erik ten Hag, and whether or not there's genuine reasons to be excited and positive as a Manchester United fan. Now, I think most of the people in my community and the AFU community are generally on the same page. We're very content and positive, cautiously optimistic about the progress we've seen so far under Erik ten Hag, right? Like, we recognize there's still a lot of problems in this team, but we like what we've seen so far. And that's like majority of the people that I interact with. But I've also been on Twitter a lot over the last few days, and I've just been trying to read the room and see what other Manchester United fans who I may not agree with are saying. And there's a lot of people who don't seem to like this Erik ten Hag guy. I don't know if it's because he's bald. I don't know if it's his beard. Maybe it's the shape of his face. I don't know what they don't like about him, but clearly they are 100% confident and strong in their conviction that he is not the right man for Manchester United. And I don't know whether it's just kids being edgy on the internet and trying to be different from everybody else, or they genuinely are delusional enough to believe that there is enough evidence to conclusively say that he is 100% not the right manager for Manchester United, and they're willing to even bet their house and sell their soul to the devil to prove it. I don't get it. I genuinely don't get it. But there are people who hold that opinion, and even though I think it's absurd and ridiculous, I respect it, but I'm going to talk about why I think they're wrong in this video. We're going to start by looking at the data. And look, I know some of you aren't big fans of stats, but look, at the end of the day, if you only vehemently use the eye test or you only vehemently use stats in football, you're both wrong. You should use both, because stats can be manipulated. So can the eye test. The eye test is biased. I'm biased. You're biased. Everybody watching this video is biased when they watch football. That's why it's important to use data to contextualize what your eyes are seeing and back up what your eyes are seeing. Just my opinion. So let's start by looking at Manchester United's XG. We're going to look at a lot of other things throughout this video, so just relax. But let's start by looking at this XG table, because this table in the first column shows the ratio of XG. What that basically means is, I think it's the goals that Manchester United are scoring in relation to their XG, and it shows every other team in the league. Now, our XG ratio is not very good, and the reason why is because we create a lot of chances and we take a lot of high quality shots, but we're not converting. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Number one, we don't have a proper number 9. The one number 9 we have, who's one of the greatest goal scorers of all time, has been exiled to the bench. He's been exiled to the gulag. He's been exiled to train with the under 21s because our manager has laid down the law, and he said, no matter what your name is and what your reputation is, you're not going to start for Manchester United because of your off-field antics. So that's the situation. That's something we have to accept. That's something we knew going into the season was going to be a problem, right? With Martial's injury issues and Ronaldo being 37 and all the off-field drama that's going on with him, we knew that we were going to have a rough season in front of goal because we don't have a recognized number 9. I don't think that should be a shock to anyone. But the positive thing is, our XG from open play is pretty good, which is an indication that we are creating a lot of chances. And our shots total is sitting at 132. In that second column, if you look throughout that table, only Manchester City have more shots total than Manchester United this season. Arsenal are third with 130. We are second with 132. And Manchester City have 142. Now listen, shots total doesn't really prove anything, but it is a slight indication that we are getting into shooting positions more often than other teams. Yes, there is context. Yes, a lot of those shots could be shots on the edge of the box that end up in row Z, and therefore they don't really mean anything in the grander scheme of things and don't prove that we are creating more chances. But when you couple that with the XG and our other chance creation stats, it is looking pretty good. It is looking pretty good. And for me as a Manchester United fan, even though I was disappointed yesterday evening against Chelsea, I was disappointed a couple of weeks against Ammonia, a couple of weeks ago against Ammonia, I was disappointed against Newcastle, the chances that we missed there. I was disappointed against Southampton and against Leicester, the chances that we missed in those games, even though we ended up winning some of those games. I was disappointed because we created a lot of chances and we genuinely dominated the game, but were unable to convert, right? Does that make sense? And I think that's a good reason to be frustrated. I think that's a positive thing. That's what you want. The last thing you want, or the worst possible scenario as a football fan, is your team is not creating chances. Therefore, they're not even putting themselves in positions to score goals. Their style of football is not palatable or attractive at all. And they're just trash, right? Defensively, they're trash. Going forward, they're trash. They're just trash to watch. That's not the case with Manchester United, because at least we're putting ourselves in the positions to score goals. Now it's just about converting them, which is great. It's great if you ask me. This is another graph or another sort of, data visualization of how we have controlled games in comparison to the other teams in the Premier League so far this season based on the games that have been played. And this is another positive indicator because this shows that Manchester United, despite how difficult our fixture list has been and the fact that Erik ten Hag is still a new manager in the Premier League and is still managing a squad that, let's be honest, is not his, apart from Casemiro, Martinez, Antony, and a couple of other players, this is not his squad. This is not his team. And he's had to change around a lot of things due to injury, due to off-the-field drama, due to a certain diva who, won't, come on against Spurs. We won't name names. Due to all of these off-field issues that he's had to deal with, he's had to maneuver things around in the squad and find short-term solutions to long-term problems. And when you take that into account, and you realize that we haven't actually lost we've only lost one game in our last 9. I was about to say we haven't lost a game in our last 9. That's not true. We've only lost one game in our last 9. When you take all of that into account, this looks very positive because if you look at Manchester United, the blue areas are the areas that we are controlling the ball. The red areas are the areas where the opposition team are controlling the ball a lot better than us, i.e. they have more touches than us. The grey areas are the evenly contested areas where it's either or. And if you look at Manchester City, you look at Liverpool, you look at Chelsea, if you look at Brighton actually and Arsenal to a certain extent, they're much better than Manchester United. But that's only 5 teams or 4 teams. Jeez, I'm bad at maths. But that's only 5 teams. So Manchester United are doing reasonably okay in terms of controlling the game. And by the way, this isn't just based on data. I've said this after every Manchester United game or almost every Manchester United game that I feel like just visually in terms of the eye test, we have controlled games in a much better manner than we did under the previous regime. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not where it needs to be. This is not the finished article. This is not an acceptable standard long term, right? Like if we're still controlling the games at the rate that we are now, 3 seasons from now, we need to have a conversation, right? If Ten Hag has been backed and he's signed several players and we're still at the same standard we are now, we need to have a conversation. But based on where we were when we lost 4-0 to Brentford, where we were when we lost 2-1 to Brighton on the opening day, where we were when we finished 6th in the Premier League last season, this is a good sign. This is a good step, especially because Casemiro is now in the team. He's in the team. The McTominay experiment is over. The Fred experiment in the DM position is over. The Eriksen experiment on the opening day of playing as a false 9 and then playing as a deep-lying midfield against Brentford, those days are over, baby, because we've got Casemiro, the beautiful Brazilian, to save us and deliver us from evil save us from temptation and yada, 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 however that prayer goes. Let's talk about team shape because we've talked about how we've controlled games. We've talked about our XG and chance creation. Shape is very important. It's a good indicator that things are changing in the team. And over here, I've put an illustration. This is a 3-1-6 formation. If you watch Manchester United play against teams who play a low block and play very deep and very narrow, you will notice that our shape has changed. First of all, we play with inverted fullbacks now, which is something we never did. So you'll see Delo on the right there is playing as sort of a third centre back. And that's a common theme. Even when we're attacking down the other side, you'll see Delo bomb forward and Shaw tuck in and be the sort of third centre back. At times, if a team is making things really difficult for us and we don't want to get hit on the break, we play a different variation of this formation. We have a 3-2-5. That happens. I think it happened against Chelsea at some point on the weekend. I saw it happen against Everton as well, because they made life very difficult for us, especially after that first half, where we weren't just throwing numbers forward. We were trying to be a little bit more cautious in our approach and trying to play through the middle. This is a shape that we've seen constantly. And this is something that I bring up only to illustrate that things are changing, things are evolving. I don't really remember us playing with inverted fullbacks under Oli or Mourinho, and I don't remember it under Rangnick either. He might have attempted it, but I don't think he did it successfully. We are now seeing Delo and Shaw, Malacia as well to a certain extent, knowing when to tuck in, knowing exactly where they should be when we're on the ball as well as off the ball, and we are seeing the tactical nuance that's been missing at Manchester United for the better part of a decade now. We're seeing patterns of play. We're seeing signs in our team shape, signs in our movement. When players are passing the ball, they're not just standing there going, okay, I've done my job. No, they're making runs. Okay, it's not perfect. It's not as fluid as an Arsenal, as an example, but there are improvements. The off-the-ball rotation and the team shape is changing. It's visibly different from Oli and Rangnick, yet there are still idiots on Twitter who say, oh, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed since Oli, bruv. Ten Hag's a fraud. Get that bald fraud out of my club, bruv. He's not good enough. Visibly, there's literally change. Our team shape has literally changed. The data backs it up. But if you actually watched football and paid attention and you weren't so biased and you weren't just overly obsessed with looking at mistakes and you actually tried to spot the positive things for once, you would realize that we've actually improved in a lot of ways. Another thing that I think is important to highlight about Manchester United at the moment, and this has nothing to do with tactics, this has nothing to do with team shape, this has nothing to do with things that are quantifiable by data. This has got to do with man management. His management of the team in this short space of time, for me personally, has been excellent. Hasn't been perfect, don't get me wrong. He's made a few mistakes, like playing Eriksen as a false nine on the opening day of the season. That was terrible. Playing Fred as a DM against Brighton on the opening game of the season. That was terrible. And then doing the complete opposite by playing Eriksen as a deep-lying midfield against Brentford. That didn't work either. And he took so long to change it because it cost us. It cost us, and he took so long to change it, and like, I don't know why, because it was clear to see that Brighton were clearly pressing Christian Eriksen. So he's made mistakes in terms of his team selection and the players he's just thrown into the team and in the positions that he's played them. But his handling of the Maguire situation, 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10 actually, 100 out of 10. It's perfect. We've been calling as a fan base, even people who are fans of Harry Maguire have been saying, just take him out of the team for a few games at least to take him out of the spotlight. Take the armband off him for a few games, right? And those of us who, the jury's kind of out, we've been saying, just drop the guy. Just drop the guy. I don't care. At this point, I'm not really interested in his personal feelings and emotions. I'm sorry for all the online abuse. I'm sure on a human level, it's terrible, but I'm so frustrated with you as a footballer that I can't find it in me to feel sorry for you. And I just want to see my centre backs do their jobs, right? We all got to that point where we just stopped caring about Harry Maguire and we just wanted him out of the team. And Erik ten Hag did that. It didn't take him long. 2 games into the season and he was dropped. That's what we've wanted in a Manchester United manager for a very long time. Somebody who starts people based on merit and form and not based on stature, not based on a piece of fabric hanging around the shoulder saying, I'm the boss of this dressing room, and certainly not based on any sort of contractual obligations and things promised by the previous regime. On top of that, his handling of the Ronaldo situation, chef's kiss. Chef's kiss, creme de la creme. Now, Ronaldo fanboys, you feel free to unsubscribe and move on. But seriously, I think his handling of the Ronaldo situation is excellent because it demonstrates something that even Sir Alex used to talk about. There is no one bigger than the club. And if anybody is offended right now, why did Ruud van Nistelrooy leave Manchester United in his prime? Because of off-the-field issues. Why did David Beckham leave Manchester United in his prime? Because of off-the-field issues. The list goes on of big names who left Manchester United. Roy Keane, probably one of the best examples of all time. One of the greatest captains in the Premier League, let alone Manchester United. One of the greatest players in the Premier League, let alone Manchester United, left the club. Why? Because nobody's bigger than the club. But Ronaldo comes back and suddenly he's exempt from that law. Suddenly, because he's the greatest goal scorer of all time, he's exempt from that rule. Him and only him is allowed to get away with off-the-field antics because of his legendary status and things he did in the past. That's not fair. Why wasn't Oli afforded that privilege? Right? Oli was a legend. He scored one of the most iconic goals in this club's history. Why is it that his past was not allowed to be used as leverage to keep him in a job further and excuse him of his mistakes and the stuff he did off the pitch or in terms of man management and stuff? Why wasn't that allowed to him? And I say that to the Ronaldo fanboys. I know there were people who tried to use Oli's legendary status to back him up and excuse his mistakes. No, but I'm specifically talking to the Ronaldo fanboys. Those of you who are using Ronaldo's past to justify his present actions, why are you not affording the same opportunity to other previous players and previous managers who are also legends of this football club who don't get that benefit? I rest my case. The point is, whether you like Ronaldo, whether you pray to a statue of Ronaldo on your knees every morning, whether you live so far up his ass that you can see what he eats for breakfast every morning, you can't deny that Erik ten Hag has laid down the law. And that's something you and I and everybody else watching this video is what we've wanted in a Manchester United manager for a very long time. I mean, and just the way he talks in the press conferences as well. Straight to the point. Subtle. Honest. You know what I mean? Like, I love this guy. Manchester United, give him everything he wants next summer because this is the right man for Manchester United. And I vehemently believe that. 100%. And I will change my mind if there's evidence to the contraire 3 seasons from now. But until that point, I think he's the right man for Manchester United. And I think there's definitely been tangible improvements in Manchester United's performance since he took over. But that's just me. Leave a like on the video if you want to support the channel. Sorry for hitting the mic, by the way. I hope I didn't make one of you go deaf. But Leave a comment if you want to, and subscribe to the channel if you are new, if you want to show support. And yeah, it's been your boy TripleM. Peace.